Talking with the experts.
Episode 263 with Jade Lee. So tell me a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so it's called What My Sherpa Taught Me About Teams. I travelled to Everest Base Camp 7 years ago, and the man who was my guide is now my husband. So, so I have about 20 years of experience in human resources and advising people on talent management, and I combined the ideas that I learnt on the trekking trail with the ideas that I've gained from years of building really good teams. And I guess there was an element there as well of how happy the Sherpas were as they were climbing up the mountain, even though they only had a pretty menial job, I guess, and they also weren't getting paid very much money. And it really surprised me, or it was insightful, that how happy they were when they did have so little, and how they actually got the engagement from their work. And that's kind of basically unpacked in the book, and it gives people some lessons from a Sherpa. So, really practical guidance, how you can get more engagement from your work, and if you're a leader, how to get more from your teams.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello, and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. I'm your host for today, and my guest today is Jade Lee. And Jade is a workplace engagement expert, having had a diverse career in talent management spanning more than 20 years. She knows what makes a successful team. We were just discussing her book and how she married her Sherpa when she was going to Mount Everest Base Camp. So we might get into that a little bit later. Welcome, Jade, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Rose. It's great to be here.
Now, we were having a discussion, and we'll get the personal stuff out of the road first. So you met your husband on the trek to the base camp at Mount Everest. What made you get married, other than falling in love, of course?
Yeah, it was actually quite interesting. So I didn't realise when I was over in Nepal how difficult it was to get people into Australia. The immigration department doesn't really like letting people into our country. So we were trying to get him over on a visitor visa, and it took 3 attempts. And then on the last attempt, when we finally got it, there was a clause in the visa that said that he actually could apply for another visa in country. Generally, you can't if you're on a visitor visa. So basically, the idea was we could get married after living together for 5 months, or we could risk with the Australian Immigration Department again and go through the whole process again. And I just thought, you know what? I think I must have been about 38 when I got married. So I figured, let's just give it a crack. I hadn't been married before. And so we got married and still together 5.5 years later.
Well done. What a romantic story. That's lovely. And now your book, we'll talk a little bit about your book before we get into anything else, is based in and around your trek and meeting your husband. So tell me a little bit about what your book is and what it's called, and, how people can find it.
Sure. So the book's called What My Sherpa Taught Me About Teams, a guide to engagement at work. So I basically combined my 20 years of human resources and talent management experience and what I witnessed on the trekking trail, and also what I experienced from living with a Sherpa for 5 or 6 years, into this book. And the idea of it is to give people some tips and practical advice as to how to be more engaged in their workplace. When I went to Everest Base Camp, I was actually quite disillusioned with my work at the time, and I was really inspired by the way that the Sherpas were really happy and engaged in their work, even though they didn't have that many material possessions. And the work is hard. Like, they do very hard work. They climb up and down mountains with, flip-flops on their feet and, 30 kilos on their back. And yet they're still smiling. So I did some research into why that would be. And that combination of all of that is in the book.
Well done. And so who is the book for? Is it just for leaders or for anyone?
No, it's for anyone. So it is for leaders. Like, leaders will get a lot of tips from it, but it's actually also just for if you're looking for greater engagement in your job, then you will definitely get something from it. So there's practical tips for everybody. And I'm also a big believer, and this comes out in the book, that it doesn't, everyone, when we have a team of leaders, that's when we really have, great engagement and kick a lot of goals. So we all should be aspiring to be a leader, whether we have the title or not. And so it's really for anybody who's in the Western world and is feeling like they could get a little bit happier with their job. Maybe they're feeling a bit disillusioned, or maybe they're just striving for something greater. So it is available on Amazon. It's also available on my website, jadelee.com.au.
Oh, perfect.
If you type into Amazon "What My Sherpa," I think it's like the third one down.
Well done. Yay. Now, with all your experience in human resource management and talent acquisition, and quite often on this show, we've talked about the difference between being a manager and being a leader, and they are actually two different things. And I still don't think that managers get the gist of what makes a good leader. They think, I'm a manager, I've got this title, and I'll just treat people like crap, basically. And people get disillusioned, as you probably you alluded to, with your own position, because you just feel disenfranchised, don't you?
100%. I think from what you've just said there, Rose, I think you'd quite enjoy my book. So as part of the leader versus manager thing, I unpack a model where to lead like a Sherpa, you're providing the direction as to where you're going. You're providing the support to get people there. So you're actually supporting your people, and you're also creating a environment where people can collaborate well. So it's the direction part of it, that small part of it's only one aspect of it. And it's really around supporting people to get to the top. So Sherpas don't summit first. Sherpas, get the team to the top of the mountain and make sure they get them back down safely. And that's, the whole idea of, for me, that I guess it's on the same lines of that leader versus manager thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. I think maybe we should send it to our politicians. Maybe we could send a free copy to all of our politicians and they could learn from it.
I could do that. I reckon that would be great. I reckon they could afford to buy it, actually, Rose.
They probably could, but they're probably too cheap.
Yeah, we need to put it in front of them. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Now, tell me a little bit about workplace engagement. How can managers, leaders, engage their teams in and make them better? I mean, I know this show has discussed it many times, but I'd really like your viewpoint on how we can get a better workplace engagement.
It's obviously, it is a very complex issue, as you would know. That an interesting stat that you probably have heard before is that only 20% of our employees are actually engaged in their work. The other, I think it's like it must be another 60% are just kind of going with the flow, as I say. And then there's another 20, well, actually probably about 15% down the bottom that are actively disengaged. But the key for me is providing that level of connection. So connection is basically the greatest, predictor of whether people are going to be happy. So having that social connection, that comes, and even though it's very difficult for us to achieve in our very fast-paced world, it comes from having focused time when you're actually really listening to what people have to say, being genuinely curious about them as individuals, as well as, what they're providing for work. So incorporating that social connection, intellectual connection and emotional connection, all working together it's really about creating an environment of belonging. So putting down our phone when we're having conversations, having our one-on-ones with people, and bring our team meetings where we're actually developing some connection there. So whether it's actually team building as such, or just incorporating it into every meeting, like asking those curious questions. What's your favorite book? Getting people to share things that really builds on the team's knowledge of them as a whole person is definitely key. Another one that I think is really important is celebrating the successes along the way, like not just the big ones, not just at the end of the project we're going to feel great. It's like, okay, well, that's great, but we've done this part of the project. Let's celebrate that. Let's build that feeling of what we've actually achieved and that feeling of engagement. So celebrating successes and really supporting each other, like knowing what our strengths and weaknesses are, like what contribution we make to the team, and then supporting each other in areas where we may be struggling or something's happening in someone's personal life and they need some support. So not letting people flail, really helping them, and obviously also that psychological safety part of it as well, making people feeling like they can contribute and they can give ideas without worrying about repercussions or being laughed at or anything like that.
You've got to love the team meetings where, the manager gets up there and just spouts all this BS and, everyone's bored out of their brain because, really it's just, oh my God, do I have to listen to this again? And blah, blah, blah. And no one else is allowed to contribute. They've got to be the worst team meetings ever.
Exactly.
Through many of them.
And these days people will just be video off and doing something else anyway. So
yeah, absolutely. And with today's environment, where a lot of people are working from home, I think it's more important to have that workplace engagement, so that the people that are working from home don't feel so isolated.
100%, exactly, and that's really, like, we have definitely lost connection with colleagues through working from home, and there's actually been some research done that people are kind of liking being a hermit and liking not really making new connections, but it's absolutely essential for us to function as humans. So it's just so important that we are actively, I guess I use the word deliberately trying to drive that connection with each other, because it's where you're going to feel happiest, with yourself and your work.
Yeah, I did my diploma of human resources management. I don't know, it must be 30 years ago. And really nothing much has changed. I think it's just even back then, HR managers and HR administrators were trying to still work through this workplace engagement, and I don't know why these years later that we're still challenged with doing that. And is there the process for making great leaders, has it fallen down somewhere?
I think a lot of it has to do with the way that we work now. So it's where the way that we work, we're encouraged to be doing more than like 10 things at once. Let's be fair. The introduction of the instant messaging app, like in workplaces, like that. Like, that's not good. Like, you're sitting there, you're trying to do focus work and someone's pinging you and your boss is pinging you and all of that. Like, the way that we've structured, social media, that virtual world, it actually works against us, because at the end of the day, we still need that connection.
Have you been thinking about starting a podcast? You can share your knowledge and expertise with people globally. Create original content that is completely unique from anything else out in today's market, not just in terms of style, but also perspective. And when we talk about revenue generating potential, well, let me tell you, it doesn't stop there. The time to start is now. You know that you should be doing it. However, many people are reluctant because they don't know how to produce it or what tools they need to do their podcast. Please feel free to email me at guest@talkingwiththeexperts.com today. And let's talk about how I can help you to build authority and credibility for your business through podcasting. Remember, don't wait for the opportunity, create it.
In terms of leadership falling down, there are still some, very good leaders out there, but I think that we try to make it too complicated and we don't do the foundational stuff well. To be a good leader, it actually would, believe in your people. Tell them if they need, if they need guidance, give them the guidance. Give them good feedback when they're doing things well, and and support them, and be genuinely interested in them. If you do that, you're probably going to be in the top 10% of leaders.
Yeah.
And you don't it doesn't have to be as complicated as sometimes we like to think it is. And also recognize that not everyone wants to be a leader, and so don't put them into those roles.
And to build on people's strengths rather than, pointing out their weaknesses all the time. I mean, as a woman, sexist card interview, but as women, most often in the workplace, our weaknesses are pointed out to us rather than our strengths, and leaders don't, well, not leaders so much, leaders don't recognise that, pointing out our weaknesses is not the thing they should be doing. It's pointing out our strengths and working on those so that our weaknesses aren't such weaknesses at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that there's something in the fact that if you have the right people in your team, they're going to take that negative feedback on board 10 times more than, or take it to heart 10 times more than any positive feedback you're ever going to give them. So really, we should be doing it 10 to 1, 10 positive things to 1. Hey, could you, you want to consider improving on this, or, and workshop it with them. Like, how can they turn one of their strengths? How can one of their strengths support something that they need to improve? And I think it's also a time factor, to be honest with you, Rose. People feel like they don't have enough time to spend with their people, which is,
don't make the time. They don't. I think it's the fact that they just feel that they have so much to do. But if realistically, if they looked at it, they're busy being busy.
Yes. Yep. 100%. Yes, I totally agree with that. And that comes down to doing that focused work as well. Like, actually, what is it that we actually have to achieve today? And really supporting your team should be the number one thing you need to do in any day, because they're the ones who are going to reduce your workload.
I always write a list. I mean, I don't call them to-do lists. I just write lists. Say, I've got videos to make, or I've got this to do, or that, and then I just scratch them off. And I think, I've got a whiteboard here with my calendar, so that I'm not, constantly looking at Google Calendar and whatever, or my phone, so that it's like it's really in my face, that I've got to know that I'm interviewing you today, and I've got something to do again later on this afternoon, tomorrow, and that way it just makes it so much easier. And I think maybe people laugh at these boards, but I think they're a really great way of keeping everyone focused on the task at hand. If it's actually in their face, they can actually see what the timeline is.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always learn with feedback too that you always give, 3 positives to 1 negative. So you always start a feedback session with a positive statement, and then you end it with a positive statement. Leave all the crappy stuff for it.
100%. And you would actually think that would be simple, that everyone would know that, but they don't.
No, they don't.
And that's why I think it's so important to get those really simple foundations right. And if we, give that to the leaders, or give that to everybody. Like, let's be fair. Like, we're all giving people feedback on their jobs all the time. So everyone in the organisation needs to understand how that, how to give and receive feedback. Like,
yes, receiving's not so great either. Yeah, especially when it starts negative, ends negative, and they leave all the good stuff in the middle. But you always remember the beginning, and you always remember the end of a story, but you hardly ever remember.
Exactly. And I think that, like, I actually had an experience when I was writing my book, and I sent it out to advanced readers, and I got 10 people like, oh my God, I love it, it's fantastic, love this, love that, and still some constructive criticism in there. And then I had one person who's like, I don't even understand. I don't understand the way we've woven the analogy in and all of this. And I'm like, really? Have I missed the mark that much? And, then it was up for me to actually, think about that feedback. Like, not necessarily all the feedback that you get is going to be true and fair, but you still need to be able to take it and analyze it and actually take it on board, I guess.
Yeah, but don't let it ruin your day or ruin your life,
No.
because one negative comment can actually bring someone down into, a bubbling mess at the end of the day.
That's exactly right. And knowing, just being able to actually look at that, that negative thing and just go, okay, well, yeah, that's their opinion. And it could be they're just having a bad day. You don't know what's going on with them.
I think it's the way that sometimes the way you live it is so personal that you can't, sometimes you just can't help taking it on board and thinking, oh my God, I'm the worst person.
Oh,
10 other people saying how wonderful you are. Just takes right down into the dirt.
oh yeah, don't worry. I spiraled. Rose. Took me a couple of days to get myself.
It's horrid when you get such negative feedback that it affects you. It affects your very soul, I think.
Certainly can. And and that's why it's important to even like I encourage people to have I still from I think it was about grade 7 we did this thing called warm fuzzies where everyone in the organisation or everyone in the class gave a positive affirmation to you and writing them, keeping those emails with positive feedback, or anytime anyone's written, just keep it in mind so that when you are having that situation, you can go, actually, well, we can take it all together. You've also got a lot of positive feedback.
I'm a great believer when I get positive feedback. I always post it on my socials. I make it into a testimonial review or whatever it is that I brag about it. And it is bragging. It feels really good that someone's taken the time to write something positive about me. But then it comes in my feed every year. You've got Facebook and come up all the time. You think, oh my God, when I'm having a bad day and this memory comes up, I think, oh, okay, I'm not such a bad person after all.
Sometimes we have to pump up our own tyres, Rose.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I give myself awards and trophies and all sorts of stuff. So I think, why not? No one else is. Why don't I give it to myself? Jade, tell me a little bit. I'm really interested to know why Sherpas are so happy and how they, build this connection with each other and teams that they build, doing such hard work. Because I could imagine would be helpful.
Yeah, well, it is. It's very hard work. There's a few things. One, they're very grateful. They're very grateful for what they have. So they have great sense of gratitude. They in Nepal, it's actually considered to be quite a privilege or quite a I can't remember the word. That's not great for an author. Quite a privilege.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. Not important.
To be a Sherpa. So that's actually considered quite, being quite a revered position. So they're actually quite proud of the work that they do. And what they do is they have this genuine curiosity. Like my Sherpa, he learned all of his English from just talking to tourists. So that's how he developed his understanding of English. And it was just learning about other people. They have a really genuine curiosity, and they also have a really good sense of the vision, sense of what. And when you're a Sherpa, it's pretty clear where you're headed to, because you've got to get to the top of the mountain. So it is a little bit more difficult in Western workplaces to articulate that vision. But when you really know, okay, I've got this team of people to the top of that mountain, and I need to know them really well. I need to have a really good sense of connection with them, because if they're not feeling well, I need to know that, because that's going to be a safety issue on the mountain. And so they recognise how important it is to develop that connection, and they do it with that genuine curiosity. And when they have and they also know what their job is. Like, they know what they're good at, and they know that they're able to give feedback to other people. Not to say that everybody, not everyone they're working with they like, in inverted commas, and we're
You
not
can't
always
like everybody. It's
we're
impossible.
not going to like everybody, and but they recognise that they'll be able to. They just need to be honest and give them support. I think there's a lack of workplace politics. Really, that's probably how to put it the clearest
Oh,
way.
isn't it?
And I think that if you get rid of the workplace politics, you probably would end up with very engaged people.
I
And
think so too. Yeah.
that's really what I noticed. And when Govinda came to Australia, like having to navigate him through the Australian workplace was also contributed a lot to the material in the book, because he was like, well, I think these people might be jealous of me because I'm working harder than them and I'm getting more shifts. And I'm like, probably are. And but he never understood that. He never got that, because he would be trekking and he might spend a couple of months with somebody, but you'd never spend that long with people that there would, be the workplace politics. And I think, and so for him, it was just foreign. It's like, what is it? Like, why are these people being like this? Like, why aren't they just being nice and trying to help me? And I'm like, yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, the Western society really should take a leaf out of a Sherpa's book and any of those types of cultures, because really they don't have a pecking order as such. In the workplace, it's just everyone is equal, and I mean, you have managers, you have leaders, you have CEOs. They understand that, but as far as in the office environment itself, everyone's equal. Everyone pitches in. They just do their bit. Why can't workplaces? I used to do the same. I was a customs officer for a long time, and I used to do a lot of work, and others seemed to be getting all the accolades for doing nothing, and I did all the work and got nothing, no recognition whatsoever. And I thought, this doesn't seem fair, but they were one of the favourites, and I wasn't. So and it's really hard to reconcile yourself to that.
100% it is. And I guess the thing is, they're all like the Sherpas are all empowered to call things out and to let people know if they're not picking up their game, because it's safety. Like it's going to be the difference between somebody getting to the top of the mountain or not, or worst case scenario, getting injured. So yeah, they're all empowered, and they will call out each other. They will say, well, you can go and get the tea today. I got it yesterday. I need to rest.
Yeah. Jade, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and I've worked with the other stuff I already know, but I love my guests because I always seem to learn something a little bit different each time I speak with someone. Where can people find you, Jade, if they want to work with you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. So Jade Lee. There's a picture of me and a picture of a mountain in the background. So I'm based in Brisbane, Australia. Also jadelee.com.au. It's probably the easiest way. There's a contact me page there, and I'll definitely get back to you. So I work with organisations to improve their workplace engagement, and I also do keynote speeches and lunch and learns and that kind of stuff for aspects of team engagement and some of the lessons that were in the book.
Now, if you had to give some words of advice to somebody, what would they be?
Slow down. Slow down, smell the roses, celebrate your successes. That's probably the major lesson that I learned from my husband, was to slow down. Like we used to just cram so much stuff into our weekends. Well, I used to. He's like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to hurry. So yeah, you can't hurry a Sherpa, and maybe we should all slow down a little bit.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Yeah, I love the slow lane, and when I have to rush, I can't enjoy it as much because I don't get to see or do as much as I'd like to do. So yeah, hate timelines. I think they're gross. I mean, maybe that's just because I'm more mature now.
I think there is something in that. I think that we grow, grow as people, and determine what we actually value and what actually makes us happy. And rushing from meeting to meeting probably doesn't make most of us happy.
No, it doesn't make me happy at all. No. All right, Jade, thank you so much for your very valuable time today. such a pleasure talking to you. Come back on.
Love to. Thanks, Rose. It's been a pleasure.
Have a great one.
Cheers.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time.